As the role of business in society changes, it's becoming crucially important that business leaders are equipped with the relevant and appropriate skills. Certainly, we needed people to foresee the credit crisis that unfolded in 2008, 2009. Now, all of this is according to Professor John Powell, who's the director of the University of Stellenbosch's Business School. He joins us from Cape Town. Professor Powell, thanks so much for your time. Is it the return of the MBA?
The MBA never went away. The MBA started as being a general management education program which put you into the top echelons of business. And although that's not true anymore, the essential values of a good understanding of the mechanics of business, the mechanics of markets, even in some sense the mechanics of the way that people operate in teams is still extremely relevant. And to some extent, while it may not be a ticket to the very top echelons of business, it's certainly a ticket into senior positions.
I mean, why do you think it's important that all business leaders need to have some kind of an MBA or generic business training? Because do you know what? Some people argue the MBA just makes you a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Well, they argue worse than that. Time magazine's July 18 issue really points the finger at the generalization of the MBA graduate in contrast with, let's say, engineering or software skills as being a detriment to capability at the top level. I fundamentally disagree. I think it's illogical thinking. I think it's sloppy thinking. After all, there's nothing that stops an engineer being an MBA or an MBA being a software engineer or a shoemaker or anything else. And if you think about it, you wouldn't ask a pilot to run an aircraft without knowing about aerodynamics. So why would you expect the top manager or middle managers even of a company to try to run that company without the basic managerial skills?
But I mean, ultimately, some would argue to be a CEO of a company, you're accountable to shareholders, you need to ensure that the balance sheet looks good, you need financial value for the shareholders. So a skill that's very channeled towards finance and accounting is probably the best skill. All these other people things, learning a bit of marketing, a bit of personnel, are things you can pick up on the job. You don't need to go and sit through 2 years of an MBA.
The job of an MBA graduate is to learn how to be an interlocutor, a go-between between theory and practice. And there's nothing special about financial skills vis-a-vis human resources skills. Companies don't just run with money, they run with people. They run with knowledge, they run with technical skills. And if you don't have the ability to manage that, even if it's not as a specialist, you can't run the company. It's really very simple. Now, I agree with you, you can acquire those skills in practice, but it's a great deal more efficient if you can be presented with theory and frameworks and other people's experience put into a way in which you can understand so that you can learn quicker and above all, you can take advantage of other people's expertise. You put a good lecturer in a room with a team of good MBA students, and they will learn from one another in a way that is quicker and more effective than learning on the job. And by the way, finance is not the most important skill. You've got it.
I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Now, going forward, some people say when you look at the credit crisis and you look at some of those who are running these accounting firms and these investment banks, many of them were coming out of renowned business schools like Wharton and Harvard, for instance, and they didn't see the financial crisis. They couldn't have preempted it. They didn't even have the risk management tools. Going forward, we don't want a repeat of events in the future. What's going to change about the MBA to equip some of these leaders with more perceptive understanding of those nuanced issues around risk management and finance?
There are two levels of understanding that you need out of an education, I think. You need short-term understanding. You need to understand what's going on in the world today. You need to understand the relevance of particular ways of thinking about business that are here today. But above all, what you need are the very skills that you're reporting as being absent during the run-up to the financial crisis. Because let's not kid ourselves. Just as people foresaw the fall of the Soviet Union, but didn't do anything about it, they also foresaw the crisis of confidence within the financial sector. It's all very well saying, I can see this as a possibility, but having the competence, the ability to turn that into action is a different thing. But let's start first with the prescience idea, the idea that a good business manager should be able to look ahead and see what is possible. That's the beginning of this understanding. How do you do that? You do that by making people understand how the business systems work, how the complex interactions between the financial resources of a skill, its human capital, its technology, how they all work together in a way that will allow you to make sensible predictions about the behavior of the firm, the behavior of the market around it, and the behavior of the regulatory structure which surrounds them both. And the only way in which you can do that is by understanding how people behave, how they think, how they behave sometimes rationally and irrationally within that fixed structure.
I want to ask you just a very brief question. It's one thing to do an MBA for running a company. What about business leadership or leadership skills for running a country? Because often we're told our political leaders need to understand that a country is like a company with its citizens as shareholders.
There are many similarities. I mean, the modern view of running a company is that it has to satisfy environmental agendas, financial agendas. It must keep its shareholders happy. But the concept is that of stakeholders, not just shareholders. And countries are like that. Now, there is an argument which says that in public leadership, that the MBA sort of skills, those fundamental things of criticality, of argument, of examination of evidence when a point is put towards you, but put within a context of needing to bring the heart and the mind and the spirit of the stakeholders with you is exactly the same for the leader of a country. And there are schools which teach public leadership in a different way from the way in which we teach business leadership. I really think that there is much more common ground between public and business leadership than there are differences.